Recording has begun. So, welcome everybody. My name is Doug Casey. I serve as the state's executive director for the Commission for Educational Technology. We're here to talk about the rollout of connectivity for students through one of our partners through the Everybody Learns initiative, and that is Altice or Optimum, as you may know their service. So we have a mighty team from Altice here to help walk you through this whole process. I am going to share my screen so that you can see some of the slides that we have. Not a ton, but important to share. And let me just ask for a quick feedback. Can you guys see the slides okay? Just a thumbs up from somebody would help. Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
Let me get that going. That should work. Okay, super. So we are not going to inundate you with PowerPoint, but we do have some talking points here that we want to make sure we cover. Um, the agenda for today is just to provide a general overview of um, the services that are included and talk about identifying qualifying households. The next steps would be serviceability and setup, so we can get your families connected. Some of the FAQs that we've tried to think of that you might have questions about. And during the session, we'd encourage you to put your questions into the chat. We'll do our best to answer those, but we will, at the end of the session, we'll be giving you contact information for the Altice team. And so they'll be there to support you in this whole endeavor. As a sort of broad sweeping statement, I just want to tell you that we're very excited about this program. Obviously, the governor putting more than $43 million into connectivity solutions has been, is going to have a huge impact this year, and we need it. With the shift to online and remote learning, we need to make sure that every student in the state is connected and has an opportunity to learn. So we're thrilled to get this program kicked off. We have other information sessions coming up with other carriers, so we are going to be sure to blanket the entire state with connectivity solutions. And just encourage you sort of as a point of protocol, if you could keep yourself muted, that would be great. We're going to see how the questions come up toward the end of the session and allow people to speak if they would like to, but for the time being, keep yourself muted so we're not listening to typing and background chatter, etc. So let me just jump in. We'll go through as quickly as we can without rushing, and then so we've got plenty of time for questions at the end. But to be clear, the service overview, and again, this is for districts with students in the Altice area service area, which by our estimates is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10,000 students. The service overview is when we connect these families, they'll receive a cable broadband connection, which provides about 30 megs down, 3 megs up. They'll receive a router with wireless access, so you won't be swapping, they won't be swapping out Ethernet cables. You'll have the ability to have multiple devices connected to the router. And in addition to this, we wanted to make sure that students who were enrolled in this, who get service at their homes, they would also be able to connect outside of their homes to any of the Altice access points that are in the broader community. So so that's some of the highlights of the services that they'll get. A lot of what we're going to be talking about this morning pertains to identifying and preparing for serviceability and fulfillment and support. So going from high level pie in the sky, good news, right into sort of the weeds of the program. we wanted to spend some time here talking about identifying households. And I'm going to hand this off to probably Jason with Altice, but to let you know our approach is you have been great about giving Ajit and me your estimated data for the number of kids that need connections. But we really want to take sort of a cast a wide net here and ask for the students that you are not certain have connections. So we're not looking for addresses of students that you know are connected, say, through a Kajit.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just a reminder, folks, if you guys, if you could keep yourselves muted, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. But what I was saying is we were trying to cast a wide net here in collecting information from districts that will not be sold or shared. We have a privacy agreement in place with Altice, but we want to really cast a wide net around serviceability. So what we're going to be asking for is address level information for students that will allow us to identify which kids don't already have a connection. Now, again, we're not looking for information about students that you know for sure, absolutely certain have a connection, whether through Kajit or you know that they have an existing account with Altice or another carrier. Really just looking for a list of students that you're not sure have a connection. So with that, let me sort of walk you through the start of this slide and then hand it over probably to Jason. So we're looking for anonymous student level data, and I say anonymous because we are asking for an address, but the intent here is to make sure that students are indeed in the Altice serviceable area, and that I think we'll be able to send out a sample a feedback template or data template for you to use. We do not want student names. Absolutely positively do not put student names in this form. We encourage you to create a district sort of fake ID, not the SACID. Say that again, not the SACID. You could take, run some kind of scrambler and create a fake ID that only you know how to translate and decode into the SACID into the student. But include that field in. Include a line or a record for each student, so we're able to identify households with multiple students. It's important for us to assess needs. Obviously, we want to connect as many students as possible, but we also want to get a sense of, are there 6 kids in a household or is there just one? I mean, that'll affect obviously the use of broadband and how much speed is really required. Um, and then when we say, do send data for all known or likely student households that may qualify, right? So to my point earlier, if don't include students that you've already given a Kajit to or that have an account for sure. But if they're, for all the students that you believe are disconnected or maybe disconnected, include those. So let me just pause there and hand the reins over to, I believe Jason's going to talk a little bit more about sort of the data request from Altice.
Doug, I'll actually jump in. My name is
Mike.
I'm the director of sales over here at Altice, and I handle Connecticut and Westchester. So you could certainly, we'll have some contact info for myself and for Jason and Eileen, who will be your main points of contact. We'll also have some individual on the team who will be assigned to the project as well. So first and foremost, everyone can hear me okay?
Sounds good, Mike.
Great. Doug, Ajit, thank everyone for all their help, and on the Altice side, thanks for all the support, putting everything together. First and foremost is the slide one here is where Doug is talking about the identification of the households that are in need. So really the goal here is to anyone who's in need as a Connecticut citizen, any students that are in need of internet connection, we want to make sure that we're facilitating that. That's the real goal of the whole project. The first blush, I'm going to call it, the first pass through, this is an example of an Excel spreadsheet that will be filled out by each of the school districts. We don't need a school name. We don't need the student's name or anything like that. We do need to do serviceability checks. So physical address of each of the students. I would say that it's really more not to identify students, but to identify households that are in need. So if we could just get a list of all of the addresses, apartment number on a separate line, obviously city, state, zip code, we'll add some additional fields, longitude, latitude that we add in that helps us with our process. But we'll go through that. And then after you supply Altice Optimum with a list, we will run through that list and we'll come back to each of the individual districts and say, here's the list of serviceable. Do you want to flip to the next slide for me, Doug? I don't know if I have the ability to do that. We'll basically come back with a list of serviceable addresses and addresses that don't qualify for the program. Following receipt of the address, all students without the following situation, which would be disqualifiers, would qualify for it. If they're a current Optimum internet service customer, they already have internet, there's no need for a second connection. If there's a household that is outside our service area for whatever reason, if it's a rural area where we don't have network, something like that, they'll be disqualified for those reasons because the construction costs would be too extreme to be able to fit into the program. If there's required.
Just jump in there for a second, Mike, to be clear, if construction required, there's a 3-mile driveway and you're pulling, those kinds of scenarios, we will address those outliers as they occur. This isn't we're not saying that student will just remain disconnected. We may have to deploy another solution. We're really committed to making sure everybody gets connected, but in a situation like that where construction is required or outside the service area, we'll have a dialogue about that and do everything we can to make sure that those students are connected. So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely. No, good clarification. I appreciate that, Doug. So then we'll basically come back with a list of qualified households. And we're going to take that list just using arbitrary numbers. Let's say a district sent over 1,000 families, 1,000 households. We'd go through the list. If we came back and said these 750 qualify for the program, then that's where a very important step of the program will commence. And that's on the district level. The district is going to be responsible for contacting each of the, call it, approved serviceable households to confirm their willingness to obviously accept the service and then to kind of make them aware and coordinate an install with them. We're not expecting you to plan individual install times, more just letting them know that you've qualified for this program, your household is serviceable. Really tell them a little bit about this state's program that they may or may not be aware of, that what you as a school district and the state is doing for them as someone in need. And let them know and make them aware of the program. It's obviously a very good news story. We're working to make sure our students are all getting the connections that they need. Through experience, we've found that some of the best ways to do that is through leveraging individual phone calls, robocalls. My kids are in the Danbury School District, so we feel like Dr. Sal, who reaches out to us quite frequently on the robocalls, is part of the family. So if you have that sort of capability, if you could set up robocalls specifically to the grouping of students that did qualify, that's an excellent way to make a first contact with them. Emails, text notifications. I mean, the list goes on as to how you communicating with your students. Obviously, you guys are way better at this than we are. You know how to communicate with your students to make them aware of a snow day, a school closing, or any sort of instances. So using all those technologies that are at your disposal, make sure that they're aware that LightPath, that Optimum Altice will be reaching out to them to schedule an install. We're also going to have each of the districts provide us with a letter of authorization. We'll provide each district with a sample or a template of what that letter should look like. And the reason for that is that letter is going to be in the hands of our install techs when they do go out. So if there's any individual family who maybe they got a robocall or maybe they knew about it, but they were a little uneasy, having that letter of authorization is just another, to make the families be at ease, that they know there's nothing nefarious going on, that this is a legitimate installation of services that they're not going to be, having to pay for, that the state is covering and all that. So we'll have a letter of authorization from each of the school districts. After the districts have gone through the serviceable list that we respond back to them with, let us know, okay, we've contacted everyone, everyone's ready to go. Basically, that's you giving us the thumbs up to start the install process. The way that's going to work is you'll return the list back to us. This list now will need to include the guardian's name, an email address, cell phone, home phone, as much contact info as possible so that we can reach out and schedule a proper install. That's really key to ensuring a positive experiences for the families during the whole install process. The addresses need to be clean. We need to know that we can install them, but we also need to know that someone knows that we're coming, so we don't have a situation where we knock on the door and someone has no idea that we were coming. Why are you here? What's going on? And then we have a tech out in the field trying to explain this great program to them rather than them know about it up front. We would schedule the installs for the above households. What we would do is we would notify the parent or guardian by an email with a date and a time for an install. Then on the day of the install, a technician will actually call the same parent or guardian to provide a confirmation on the install and really to tighten up the window as to when they expect to be, how their day looks. Optimum, we will be scheduling all these installs for all of the households that qualify. Once we've done that, Optum will notify the school and the districts of the installation status. As out of the 750, we went out and we installed, say 700. There's another 50 that we had to move to a different date, and we'll give you ongoing updates, and that'll go back and forth between my reps, Jason, myself, Eileen. Will be communicating back to the individual school districts on the status of each of the installs. I think we can jump to the next one, Doug. And that's the nuts and bolts of the process. We did put together some FAQs. So what do families get through Optum Altice? To help bridge the digital divide in Connecticut, the state partnered with Altice USA. The state will be providing funding to cover the cost of the internet to Connecticut households in the optimum service area that have been identified by the school districts that are lacking broadband connectivity. Household identified by the schools are going to be receiving 30 meg down, 3 meg wired internet connection. They're going to be provided with a smart router that provides Wi-Fi throughout the entire household that would allow for multiple devices to connect via the Wi-Fi. In addition, you'll also receive access, each of the families will receive access to the Wi-Fi hotspots throughout our entire service area. So if someone happens to be at a coffee shop or, in town or near one of the hotspots, they'll have access to that. Who's families living in serviceable addresses that do not currently have optimum internet, they will qualify for the service. Next slide. What about families that have suspended service because of payments and arrears? This is a really specific part of the program that the state was very specific on. And regardless of outstanding payments, we might have a customer who is an existing Optimum customer, but due to circumstances, they haven't been able to be making their payments. We're still going to be able to connect those families that don't have active internet service under the state plan, separate from the home and their personal plan. And if we have a situation where, maybe someone has a plan, but, with us, but they're starting to not be able to make the payments and they're fearful that they're going to have to turn it off because they can't afford the plan. A upon request by individual school districts, we will be able to establish a separate connection for those families that already have existing service with us. If there's a unforeseen financial hardship, we wouldn't know of a financial hardship, so we're going to come back to the school and say, well, they're an active customer. The Jones family are an active customer. If the Jones family then reaches out and says, well, I'm turning off the internet because I can't afford to pay for the internet, or I that internet connection, although a tier is for my personal business, I can't have the kids getting on while I'm doing work, or whatever the reason is. We will, as long as they're identified to us, we have an exception form for each of the districts to let us know that although there's already an optimum connection in the house, you want us to install internet nonetheless, and we're happy to do that. What will Altice Optimum be doing with student data? The initial data exchange is not going to include any student or household identifiable information. Needless to say, once the household is qualified for purposes of the install, the identification of the primary household member is required, and they need to be home. An adult over the age of 18 does need to be home for us to be installing the service, so we'll arrange that with them. Altice I won't say needless to say, but we will not be selling or sharing any family data that is provided as part of this installation process. The next slide, Doug, is going to be your main points of contact. So we're kind of calling a district program leads. I'm the sales director there in the middle, Mike Wolf. That's my work line. I'll also be happy to provide my cell phone if anyone needs to get a hold of me that way. Cell phone's probably an easier way to get a hold of me, seeing as I'm not at the work, but that phone does roll to my cell, so you have me 24/7 if you need me. Eileen Harlan, who's on Jason's team, is our other main point of contact, and of course Jason Koch, who we've mentioned your name a lot, Jason. I'm sure you'll get a chance to jump in here in a second and go through any some of the questions that the districts may have, but he's been invaluable to us in this whole process. So that's what I would call the 5-cent tour. Does anyone have anything that they wanted to add, or should we jump right to questions?
Yeah, and we've got one question already that I think just for ease of navigation, I'll pull up the serviceability and setup slide. So Nancy Burns from Fairfield asked the time frame once Altice receives the list of addresses, list of households. What do you expect the timing to be to get set up?
Yes, the timing is typically 48 hour business hours, so 2 business days. If we get a significantly larger batch of addresses, it may be slightly longer, but typically 48 hours, 2 business days.
And just to specify, to follow up on that, Jason, if you don't mind. So that would mean 48 hours from you've given us a list, we've done the qualification, we've given the list back to you, and then the districts have contacted the people on the list, and then they say, okay, here's the list that's good to go. Once we have that, it's good to go. That's the 48 hours, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's 48 hours, the qualification piece. Once we get back the list of addresses that have been contacted, we'll schedule those installs probably within a day. So now when they'll be installed depends on the availability of tech. So it has a lot to do with how many are scheduled at once.
So if I can summarize, what I'm hearing is the district is going to be providing that list of addresses. They'll get back the list of serviceable ones. At that point, it's really important for them to do 2 things. One is notify those serviceable families that they are eligible for this program and that they will be hearing from Altice. At the same time, to get not just addresses back, but contact information, and probably flag for you any families that for one reason or another don't want the service, or the last thing that we want is a technician from Altice showing up and the family says, I don't want this. So this is really work that the districts as well as Altice will be sort of tied at the hip in doing to make sure that families are both informed and ready to accept service, correct?
That's, yep. And so just to, hi everyone, this is Joe Flynn. So just want to make sure we're crystal clear on that. And sorry, just seems like we're getting a lot of background noise. So the installation timeframe will not be that initial 48 hours. That's the sort of that serviceability process. The installation will occur after we have notification or acknowledgement from you that you've contacted the families. So thanks, Doug, for emphasizing and underscoring that point, because I do think it's critical to setting the right expectations as well as making sure we have a successful install.
So another question came up that is there a template for the data file? There is. So I will at the completion of the call in a little bit of time, I'll send out that file. I'll send out a link to the recording of today's presentation, so you can do a refresher if you'd like, or share it with a colleague. And then we'll also send a copy of the slide deck. One question that came up to me for the Altice team is under, if we're looking at the slide here and talking about district outreach, do you have a letter of authorization, a sample, even language that we could provide to districts so that they can sort of tee this up really well and get that ready?
Yes, we have a template letter that can be, you can pretty much just put in your district information and use that if you'd like, or you can use it as a sample for something you want to write yourselves. But I'll provide that to you, Doug, and you can send that out with the template for the serviceability spreadsheet.
Okay.
Doug, I actually had a question, if it was okay, if it's possible, if everyone's on board with it, if you could actually provide us the various school districts, whoever the point of contact, the main point of contact for the districts are going to be. If you could provide us with that list, Jason and I and Eileen will be happy to reach out directly to each of them. If there's any, maybe someone shy didn't want to ask a question on the call, ask any questions like that, we're happy to do that. I also want to, the template that Jason's talking about, the example of the letter of authorization, all that we can get directly into the hands of the people who need it, and certainly get all their contact info, make sure they have all of our contact info. So those are the parties between us and them who's really going to be working hand in hand to make this a successful program for the kids.
That sounds like a plan, Mike. And so for everybody on the call, what I will provide to Altice, so you're aware of it, is the list of contact information from the form that you, the school districts, completed to indicate your needs around computers, mobile hotspots, and cable broadband. So whoever it was that completed that request form will use that contact information. And I will also, I think I'll also be able to share it with anybody who was here today to the best of my ability to leverage WebEx. But yeah, we should be able to get that out to you, Mike, and certainly I'll send a sort of a more general notification to everybody on our general lists about about the program. And again, the slides, a link to today's recording, the data template, and we'll go from there. A question that came up yesterday when we were prepping for this call was the sort of format for getting you the address data. And Jason, as I recall, you said that you preferred an Excel template. But I don't know if Google Sheets will work as well. I don't want to get too specific here, but people like their tools. Any preference on your end?
Obviously, Excel works fine, but if you got another spreadsheet format you'd rather send, I'm I'm pretty sure we can work with that. If there's a problem, we can reach back out to the school and let them know.
Okay, good. So I'm looking in the chat and encourage anybody to drop any other questions in there. I think we've answered everything that's come up so far, and where people want to speak out a question, feel free to unmute yourself. But we can hang out for another couple of minutes. But while we're doing that, let me pull back up the contacts. That should be on your screen right now. Oh, and this is an important point. We want you as district leaders to feel free to contact Altice with questions. Mike was even brave enough to provide his cell phone. I'm impressed. But to be super clear here, the district program leads that are on the left side of the screen here, these are not contacts that you should be providing to families. Really, we want, once installation happens, in an ideal world, and we're really hoping for this, is that families should not have to be contacting you about connectivity. They shouldn't even be having to contact Mike, Jason, and Eileen. Really, there is a channel, a support channel that already exists that they should be contacting Altice Optimum for. And so that's that family technical support. Altice already connects thousands and thousands of households across the state already. They have a team that's ready to support them with technical issues, service issues. So please, don't share the district program lead contact information with your families. They should be in really good hands with the standard technical support team from Altice.
Doug, I really appreciate you mentioning that. I should have covered that. I will say that I appreciate you saying how I was brave with my cell phone. Apparently, I was unbrave with my email address, because I do have a favor from you. Before we send this out to the group, there's a 1 after the wolf there.
I remember that as soon as I saw it.
I don't know how I missed that.
Good. Well, we'll make sure this gets out with all the correct contact information. If there are no other questions, we can give back some time this morning. And I don't see anything else in the chat, so I want to thank everybody for joining us here this morning. As I mentioned, I will be sending out a link to the presentation recording, the slides, and we'll send the data import template as well. And expect to hear from the Altice team in the near future. And we'll go from there. And any other sort of high-level questions, I'm always around. Feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning, and have a great rest of the day.